Hello and welcome back to AEC Today Reports. If you're watching us, how about you share it right now if you're on Facebook or our YouTube so others can see this broadcast as well. We're so happy that you joined us this evening. We're excited as always to talk to our guest. We love hearing about the things our churches are doing to reach out to the community, and we're going to spotlight some of those churches in this episode. We're also going to talk about what's happening in the world right now and this racial divide that seems to be going on. And we're going to hear from some of our pastors on their thoughts of how we as Adventists should be engaged in this fight. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back after this break.
The Bible tells us in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14, "If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land." If there were ever a time that we needed to come together in prayer, it is now. Therefore, our president, Elder Henry Fordham, is calling on you to join us as we band together in prayer. Pray corporately with us every day at 12 p.m., and in addition, 3 times a day. We believe that God will honor the faithfulness of His people as we band together in prayer. Please pray with us and watch God move.
We're here, as we always like to do, talking about some of our churches who are continuing to serve the community even during COVID-19 and finding very creative ways to do so. And so I want to introduce at this time special guest. Hello, Dr. Stokes.
Hello.
Elder Stokes, Dr. Stokes.
Mm-hmm. Ellen Stokes is fine.
She comes to us from Macedonia Church, which is located in Chester, PA, and we're so happy to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing quite nicely. Thank you.
Great. And we're talking because I had the privilege of being on the Women's Ministries Tea, and Elder Stokes was also part of that. And she was sharing some of the great things that were happening in Macedonia as we were talking about different ways that we could stay active during this time of isolation. And so when I heard all of the things that Macedonia was doing, I was like, okay, you have to tell us more about this because it's awesome. But before we jump into that, Elder Stokes, if you can just give us a little idea of what Macedonia is like. What's the personality and makeup of your church?
Well, Macedonia is a small church in Chester, Pennsylvania. It's a commuter congregation. We have people who come in from Delaware, from Philadelphia, of course, Delaware County, and some members coming from New Jersey. And we're a small congregation, but we are extremely active. We believe in ministry, and we want to go home. So we believe in spreading the gospel and, of course, taking care of our members. Dr. Williams is such an energetic pastor, and he has us on the move, for which we're grateful for.
Awesome. I love to hear that. Now, how are you all operating with your services? Are you guys on Zoom? Are you pretty consistent with how you're staying connected as a church for your services?
Well, we were pretty fortunate because before the pandemic, we broadcast on Facebook and YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. But since the pandemic, since we don't go into the physical church building, we broadcast on Zoom and Facebook Live. And you can go to our Facebook page, Macedonia SDA Church, on Sabbath morning at 11:10. We start just to make sure it's up and running and it stays up. We also have Zoom, and you have to register for that to get in, so we don't have any Zoom bombers. And on Wednesday night, we also have a virtual prayer service. We also have a weekly prayer line, which is Monday through Friday mornings at 5:30, and Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday evening at 7:30. So we stay in connection and we pray. We're a praying church.
Oh, amen. I love that. And I love that you guys are, like you said, multiple times a week, you have an opportunity to connect with one
Absolutely.
another. It's so important during this time. Now, you guys are also involved in a lot of community service activities. You know, you're not just coming together for yourselves, but you're also still reaching out to your community. And I know you guys have a food pantry, or the better is it the Better
Better Living
Living?
Center. Better
Better
Living
Living.
Center.
Are you guys able
Mhm.
to still keep that active during this time?
We had shut down for a while when the pandemic first began because we weren't sure we should be doing or how to keep people safe. But we are opening that again. We have food stores that we need to distribute before they go bad. And so we're opening up the food bank again so that those in the community can come pick up food stores and have food during this pandemic. As you know, there are so many people who have lost their jobs, lost income, and so there are food shortages, and we are just trying to help with that.
Excellent, excellent. And I also know that you guys have wellness checks on your members just to make sure
Yes.
you're doing well. How does that work? What does that look like?
What we did was we followed the example of that Jethro gave to Moses, and so the pastor delineated or separated the membership list to all the elders and gave us deacon and deaconesses on each team to contact each of our members each week to check in on them, find out how they're doing, do a mental health check, see if there's anything we can help with, what we should be praying for. And we also ask them if there's any way that we can help them in their spiritual walk. We also offer to collect tithes and offering. There are members of our congregation who are a little bit older, not technology savvy, and so we have deacon and deaconesses go actually past their house to collect offerings. So there's a number of things we do, but we make sure that we know what we're praying for them. We know what's going on in their homes, and then we come back and report on that. And the pastor is we do that every week. So a member is getting a call in our church every week. If we have good contact information for them, we are contacting them.
That's great. I think that keeps the connection strong. It probably even
Absolutely.
strengthens it more than just seeing them in church on Sabbath. You actually get to dialogue intimately with them. So that's great. That's great.
Yes, building
And
relationships.
You also did some type of wellness parade?
We did. As you know, we recently lost Zelda Byers Norman. She was a member of our church, and
I love her. So
yes,
sweet.
yes, she was just incredible. And when we found out that she was as ill as she was on the hospitality committee, of which I'm on, and we went past her house. We brought her two huge gift baskets, one for her granddaughter who lived with her, and one for her. And we made sure we went by and check on her. But what was even better was that 2 weeks before she passed, we had a virtual anointing service for her, which was extremely moving. And I am so glad that we had a chance to do that for her. She was an exceptional woman and not easily replaced, and we will miss her. We will miss her a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, I first met her through Pathfinders, and she was a staunch Pathfinder.
Pathfinder for life.
Pathfinder
for life.
Yeah, that did take me by surprise. I was sorry to learn of that, but it's good to know that you all, even before she passed, she knew that her church family loved and cared for her.
Absolutely.
And so that's why it's important. I think we realize more and more, particularly during these times, why it's important to pour into people because we never know when that time comes.
That's right.
Congrats, Macedonia, for that. So of all the things that you all have going on, what are some of your favorite ways that you guys are reaching out? What are some of the things you look for? I know you look forward to the weekly calls, but what else do you enjoy about some of the things your church has going on right now? We
are very interactive. So if you come to our page on Wednesday night or on Sabbath morning, we come for service, but then after service, it's the fellowship. Sometimes the pastor says, okay, well, service is over. And he says, you guys can stay on if you want, but, service is over. And we tend to stick around and chat with each other, to catch up with each other, to just let people know how we're doing. And we're such a friendly congregation. And you can tell that when you join us that we just like each other, which is a
That's
blessing. Hmm.
and sometimes can be rare. So we're
Yes,
happy to hear that. And I think this
yes,
is really showing us that the church really isn't the building. It is the
right,
people. And as
right,
long as you stay connected to people, you'll always have church. You don't necessarily need a building to
yes,
make that happen. So
yes.
well, I just want to salute Macedonia for once continuing to stay connected as a church, but also being very intentional about reaching out to your members as well as your community. We applaud those efforts, and we ask you to give those sentiments back to Macedonia. Let them know that Allegheny East and all of our constituents who are watching are happy to know that we have a church like this one in our congregation. Happy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right.
Doc,
Thank you so
I
much.
do, I do just want to say that that we have a wonderful leader in Dr. Williams and his wife Janine, and he is an extraordinary administrator, and we love him. And what you see a reflection of his vision, and so we're grateful. Mhm,
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
mhm,
Williams. If you watch this, we appreciate your dedication and leadership.
mhm.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you a little later. Thank you, Elder Stokes.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. We'll be right back after this break.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
All right. Thank you for staying tuned in to AC Today Reports. And we're back with our next segment. And we're very happy to have with us today as we continue this conversation about our churches and how they're being involved in the community during this COVID-19 pandemic. We have some other people coming to us from Emmanuel Brinklow, and we have the pastor, Pastor Anthony Medley. How you doing?
Good.
And we also have with us part of the community service team there, Lynette Yancey Robinson. How you doing?
I'm great.
So let's talk a little bit. Now, the reason, as I mentioned in the intro, that we are speaking with you all is because of the great work that Emmanuel Brinklow is doing in the community. But for those who are not familiar with your congregation, Pastor Medley, you want to tell us a little bit about the makeup of Emmanuel Brinklow, where you're located, and give us some context there?
Sure. Good morning, Latasha. We're delighted to be with you today, and I'm delighted to be in my 12th year as a senior pastor of the Emmanuel Brinklow Seventh Adventist Church. We're in Ashton, Maryland. Those of you who know the DC, Maryland area, we're just north of the Silver Springs area. If you know anything about that area, if you keep traveling north on New Hampshire Avenue, you'll eventually come to the Emmanuel Brinklow Church as it crosses over 108, about a mile up the road on the left side. Emmanuel Brinklow Church is a strong congregation and has always been a strong congregation in the Allegheny East Conference. What I'm most proud of recently is that as a church is, as you know, a very high professional based church, but there is such a strong passion for individuals to be involved in our communities. Our community, our area is Montgomery County, and I'm so grateful that we have partnered with our county on many events, from health initiatives to clothing giveaway to tutorial programs to lectures and education on finances and stewardship. And most recently, of course, what we're doing in terms of our issues with feeding our community. What people don't realize, Montgomery County, which is considered one of the wealthiest counties, of course, in our state, has pockets of poverty throughout the county. And that is something that folk don't realize, that in these suburban areas, there are pockets of real poverty, people who are in need. You think about over 42 million people in this country that are unemployed. A number of those individuals are in all of our counties. Montgomery County, we have our share of individuals who are in need of assistance. And we're glad that the Emmanuel Brinklow Church is there to be partnered with our community.
Okay, great. We're glad you're there as well. And I know that you all had already had a very vibrant, sorry about the echo, had a very vibrant food pantry going on. Lynette, can you tell us about the food pantry at Emmanuel Brinklow before COVID, how it operated?
Well, Latasha, we didn't have a food pantry before COVID.
Oh, you didn't?
No, this is something that we stood up as a
Okay.
Yes. So we fed families in the area. So Brinklow has partnered with the county to be an emergency resource. So when families needed either financial assistance or food, they would call the church directly. And then we would feed families in the county for the holidays. But this pantry was set up as a result of COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, that's even more exciting. So,
Yeah.
We referring to it as a pop-up pantry because
Yeah.
of the nature of what it's able to do. Can you kind of explain what a pop-up pantry looks like? How did you guys organize something like that?
Yeah, so it's always good to partner so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so what we did is we created strategic partnerships with pantries that already exist in our county. And so we talked to them about the need in the area where we serve, and we pick up and we deliver and distribute from our location, but we receive the food from pantries that already exist. Capital Area Food Bank and ACS is as those strategic partners.
That's awesome. So partnership. So you're able to do it to produce this pop-up pantry from gathering resources from other larger pantries.
Correct. So pantries that already exist, this is what they do every day. We just partnered with them and they said, hey, you can be a pop-up. They called it a satellite. You can be a satellite location for us. And so that's what Brinklow is. We did it in, I think, 14 days. We set this pantry up from idea to the first boxes being given to families. It was 14 days.
Wow, that's great. That's remarkable. So go ahead, Pastor Medley.
I want to add to that, Natasha. So, when this thing happened, it happened and that God had put the burden on two of our individuals. Lynette is one of them, and Ruth and Philip is the other. And what is significant is that in terms of partnership, we looked at another faith-based community, not another faith-based church, not an Adventist church. And we got counsel from them as to how we can go about doing this. So, it is important that we reach out beyond ourselves and look at success stories, best practices that exist in our county. It was based upon what another faith-based church was able to give us guidance and counseling that enabled us to move forward, to partner with the right people. And as Lynette said, within 14 days, we were at the point of having deliverables.
I love that. And I also like what you pointed out earlier in that Montgomery County is considered pretty much an affluent county. And a lot of people wouldn't assume that there is a need in a county like this one. But you all were in tune to those needs and also partnered with other, we have to learn how to do better with our partnerships with other denominations. It's okay to partner with other entities to be able to get this done. So let me ask you, how many families are you all able to serve? Are you serving on the church grounds? Where does this take place?
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Because we both can talk about this. We work around it. Let me start. Lynette, you fill in all the technical details on this.
Okay.
Of course, we're in a COVID-19 environment, so there are limitations as to how many people can gather and what we can do. So we honor the state mandate of 10 people and less. That was a critical thing. Organizing the team who would meet. We wanted to make sure that we had not only those who started this, Lynette and Ruth, we wanted to make sure we had a healthcare person there. So our faith community nurse, Betsy Johnson, was a part of this. We wanted to make sure we also had some legal entities. So we called in one of our attorneys to help navigate our waivers and those types of information. Then we networked with our head deacon and a few others that were on the community services team already, who already have passion and influence in the community. So that's how we formed our team. And everything is done in the parking lot. Nothing is done in the church. There's no storage of resources. They come in one day, the same day resources go out. We decided to start as a pilot because we already have connections in the county, which HOC, what Lynette would talk about, we already have good relationships in Montgomery County with those families that are in need. So we didn't have to go searching for them. Our long-standing relationship with community people made this possible. So we wanted to start small to make sure that we can do it right. So we said we'll pilot it, and then we'll move forward from there. Lynette, you can carry it from there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Latasha, the unique thing is you were talking about Montgomery County and how we're feeding families. Montgomery County does a great job of putting low-income housing in middle class and upper middle class neighborhoods so that children have access to education and a positive future. So in these pockets, there are what you would consider subsidized housing. And so when we wanted to kick it off, we didn't know what we would get from the pantries. So we talked to our partners it's called the Housing Opportunities Commission within Montgomery County. Most the people in most need, just refer them to us while we're doing this, and we'll work through how we'll continue. So we started with 30 families, our first distribution. They drove up, they picked up their boxes. HOC has a van, so they helped us deliver some boxes. We do this every 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, we did 76 families. And then our last distribution was just this Thursday. We fed 150 families.
Wow.
So exponentially.
That's awesome. So you make sure they know that this is available. How do you communicate to them that they should come and get the food?
This is the best part about a partnership. So partnership is letting the families know when to arrive, what to expect when they get there, or if they need delivery, because we're dealing with a lot of senior citizens as well. And they either don't want to come out, or we're also dealing with a demographic that may not have transportation. So they let the families know the distribution date and when to come, if they can deliver to their neighbors, and they drive up and pick it up. So all we're doing is the distribution part. We're getting the food, we're organizing the food. And of course, we have contact with the county to figure out other needs. So some people have a need for diapers, some people have a need for masks. So we've been able to meet some of those needs as well.
This is awesome. This is great. I love to hear how these steps are working. And Pastor Medley, tell us, how does this pop-up food pantry or the satellite food pantry reflect the mission of Emmanuel Brinklow?
Thank you. This is center stage to the mission of Brinklow. Our mission is to grow young and to grow out. Part of growing out is making stronger partnerships with our communities. Now, I'm grateful that for the last several years, we have had strong partnerships with our community. From our health initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, with the Amen Clinic and the free clinic that we do every year that provides dental, vision, and whole life care. That's an ongoing event that takes place with our health initiatives. The other programming that we have, the tutorial program, again, the seminars that are taught, the classes that we provide, the cooking classes, all those things make partnership possible. This is the mission of the church. Without connecting with community, the church does not need to exist. It's a club, and we ought to close our doors, because God has called us to have a holistic ministry that reaches all the entities of broken humanity. So we're at our best when we are in partnership and stepping out of the comforts of our churches and reaching out to our communities. And Emmanuel Brinklow has committed themselves to being very focused in community. So it is consistent with our mission.
Amen. Amen. And I know in talking about the mission, we also wanted to kind of help others who may be interested in something like this, the ability to start small and grow. Now, I identified a few steps from you all talking. Creating those community partnerships is very big. Also, solidifying your team, who's going to manage the process and the distribution. Are there any other steps that you can recommend for churches to take who may be interested in starting a satellite food pantry themselves?
I'm going to mention one, and Lynette, you fill in the gaps again. From a church perspective, we ought not assume that because an individual is elected to a position in the church, that they are the only ones who can fulfill that mission. That's a big issue. We have a community services leader, Dr. Yuva Shakes, who is on this team also. But God has in all of our churches individuals who have real passion for ministry that goes out beyond those who are elected positions. The church has to be comfortable enough to broaden its approach, not to be so territorial that others can't do it. And when the church realizes that the Holy Spirit gives many people in the church, then it can start to do real ministry. So the first thing the church has to do is stop working according to elected departmental lines and allow the people of God with the gifts God has given them to broaden their perspective so they can reach community.
Love that.
I love it too.
You want to add to that, Lynette? Any other steps you think would be important to another church who wants to try something like this?
Yes, I would definitely add to, the passion that the partnerships with whatever county or city that they're in, and then the partnership with whoever's doing it. So if it's food and in the middle of a pandemic, how do you find food? You have to partner with another pantry that already exists, because if you try to buy it, you can't do it. So I would say if your passion is about children, if there's something else that someone else is doing to mentor and tutor kids, get with that organization and figure out how to help or become a pop-up or a satellite. The same that we did with the food pantry. I think that those types of partnerships can help all of our churches grow and expand.
All right. Sounds great. Sounds great. Thank you for that information. And not to get off topic, but we understand where we are with this COVID-19 pandemic. And we also understand that in this world right now, we're dealing with a lot of other issues, particularly racial tension as it comes to, the recent George Floyd murder. And I know this past Sabbath, Pastor Medley, you spoke very passionately about that topic and encouraging us. I'm sure it wasn't just for your members that you were talking to. You had a very powerful message. What is it that you're really trying to hit home for us right now, who are Adventists, who are Christians, who are people in general? What were your takeaways? What do you want us to take away from your message?
Thank you for that question. First of all, I want to celebrate any church that is actively involved with social activism in their community. We remember what took place in Baltimore, and I celebrated with Miracle City and some of the other churches in Baltimore, the pastors did to be on the front line of being involved with community. What I've noticed in my ministry is that, as I said yesterday, that normally when there are urban crises, when there are community crises, when they're looking for the clarion voice, the moral voice, those who have impact, those who have influence in the community, rarely do they come to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I'm talking about the African-American Seventh-day Adventist Church that finds itself embedded in urban America. They don't come to us to ask for a voice, to ask for leadership, because we have not traditionally partnered in community to do those types of things. So my call is that whenever these things happen, like what just happened, of course, with George Floyd, we are all impacted by that. We all have strong feelings towards that. And I know that there are individuals in churches who are very connected, like Lynette Yancey Robinson. But in terms of a collective responsibility for churches that exist in community, I am calling us to be more involved, more intentional about stepping out of our comfort zones and really getting to know the critical people who make differences in community. Really stop walking past the homeless and the downtrodden to get to our churches, and to stop and really to be in touch with our communities. I'm calling all of us to do that. I'm calling myself out, and I'm calling out all of our churches to do that. I'm calling our conferences to do more. I also said something yesterday that I firmly believe in, that I believe that the regional conference individually may be doing things. But think about the power of solidarity if all the entities would come together and have one strategy, one voice that speaks to the issues that are taking place in our country. I think one of the reasons why we're not being heard is because we're talking in silos. Let's come together. Let the leaders bring us together on two critical issues that are happening right now. the social issues in our community. Let me circle back to my main passion. When I think about the health disparities in the African American community that are killing us and what COVID-19 has done in our community, we claim to be a people who have a holistic health message, but we haven't come together as a Black caucus to say, hey, God has given us a message for our inner cities. Can we come together and establish a task force that's going to work on solutions for preventable diseases? That's a real call and a real need for ministry. And I pray that God's people will hear what we can do and not just the rhetoric that we're always talking and things we're always, let's make a difference. That's my only appeal. Let's do something that is substantial, that is sustainable, and that alleviates the suffering that is taking place in brown and Black communities in our country. That's what
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Whew, I feel riled up. What do you think, Lynette, about that charge from your pastor?
I tell you, you know, when God is leading, you have ideas and passions that start small. So we wanted to use the pantry for wraparound services even before all the social injustices started rearing its head over the last few weeks. And so we know that we can use wraparound services from feeding people to, hey, when this happens again, let's do some financial workshops so that maybe you're not in this situation. You're the one able to help someone.
Mm-hmm.
Do some things with your children so that education is key during these summer months when the camps are closed, the pools are closed. And what are we going to do? So I think that what Pastor Medley, his charge yesterday, is going to, I don't know, it's going to expand or even maybe make a niche for our wraparound service. What are we going to do now? So I really think that as a committee and as a church, we should be in prayer about what those wraparound services look like.
Right. I agree. And I think by being more involved in your community, reaching out and addressing needs when things like the George Floyd incident happens, we're not so disconnected from it. We're part of it, and we can rally more people together because we've already been out there in the community helping out. And so I take the charge, Pastor Medley. I'm hoping listening will do so as well. But
I believe you. I can add another wraparound service has to do with the food. One of the things, so God has blessed us with property. And one of the things that we want to do in our wraparound food service is that we're going to expand our community garden concept. But see, the community garden has a purpose. We already have good gardeners there and so forth. The community garden gives us an opportunity to teach individuals how to grow, become self-sustainable in their own growth. But the other part of that is to create our own farmers market. Because in these underserved communities that we're talking about, they can't go to the grocery store and buy these high-priced produce.
right.
But we want to start our own farmers market to serve our underserved people. But that's not the end of it. We also, the reason why, for those churches who are looking at expanding, who can create and build a commercial kitchen, we're looking at doing that also, because part of that is we also, once you've grown your food and once we have the farmers market, because we want to teach you how to prepare it, how to expand it, to make it work in your own family. That's a part of the wraparound. We're not building things just for us. We're building things to better our community. And this will work. And there's a whole lot more that goes with that. But as Lynette said, this is a part of the wraparound concept. We got to connect the dots in order to be mission focused. Because again, if we're just doing things to be doing them, then they're not sustainable and they won't. Right. And as you know, Latasha, and I say this, and I honestly value how you go out and capture the stories and tell the stories for that. And it makes a difference. And I promise you, I don't always tell you that, but I applaud your work. But what I don't appreciate, I think we talked about it, I have an issue with individuals going to community just to take pictures of themselves, trying to pretend as though they're doing something.
Yeah.
It's the work that matters more than your personal publicity.
Right.
It makes a difference. And I know you're trying to tell the story of individuals in our conference and around who are involved with ministries, not photo. Let's be serving people, even if we never get on camera.
Wow.
I
Can
love
I
that.
can I add one thing to that?
Sure, please do.
That's why our relationships, when we talked about the steps with starting strategic partnerships, the partnership has to be just that. It has to be a committed, continuous partnership, not a photo op, not a one-time thing. When it's there, that's why Montgomery County can give us names, and no, we're not going to take advantage of the names. We're not just going to disappear. So when I would say any advice, as you said, to other churches who may want to do that, look at these partnerships for long term and how you can just build their trust, because when they trust you, they're going to continue. Can you help us with this? Can you help us with this? Our states are underfunded. They need our churches to meet the needs of people. I just think this is it's a horrific time, but it's also an awesome time for us to
opportunity
that Christ is here and that God still answers prayer. He's still
And Lynette, if I'm sorry, Latasha, my last point on that, reaching need. We also know that while we're reaching community, we have individuals in our own churches that are in need. They have jobs and lost income and are suffering just to keep meals on their table. We have to take away the stigma of our own members being able to reach out for help. And we appeal to individuals, even in our congregation, folks, don't stigmatize people that are in need.
Yeah.
Let's embrace all of them and reach them just like we would reach anyone else. And don't ask somebody if they show up at your food pantry, what are you doing?
What are you doing here?
That's the wrong question to ask.
Yes.
A compassion and a heart to serve is a compassion and a heart to serve. So let's serve God.
Amen. Great points. Thank you guys so much. And we've covered a lot here in this 24 minutes that we've been talking. But I think it's important because we're pushing home this idea of, the church really getting back to its mission. And that's one thing that I can say COVID has done, or I've seen COVID has done for our church, is really helping them focus on mission. When you're not in the building, you can't focus on maintenance and all that stuff. You're really looking at why do we exist? Why are we here as a congregation, and what can we do? And we see that Brinklow is definitely answering that question on multiple levels. And so we like to applaud you and thank you for everything that you're doing to be intentional about reaching your community. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor Medley, for your leadership. Thank you, Lynette, for your dedication to this ministry, and the others who are part of your team. We just want to say thank you.
Thank you for having us.
our pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, and please stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to AEC Today Reports. We're glad you stayed by with us, and we're really excited because we're going to talk to someone very special to AEC, and that's none other than one of our very own pastors, Pastor E.T. Stoddard. How are you doing?
Doing great, Tosh. Doing great, sis. God is blessing. We keep working, keep plugging away every day.
All right, that's what we like to hear. The last time you were with us, you were showing us your daily exercises and daily motivations. And the next time I saw you, you were exercising your right to protest this past weekend. I see that you were involved in some of the protests in Newark, New Jersey. Tell us, first of all, why you decided to go out and be a part of that protest.
Well, first of all, I think like most of us, when we heard about what happened to George Floyd, when we heard about what happened to Ahmaud Arbery down in Georgia over the last couple of weeks, our hearts have been just our heartstrings have been tugged on, and we've gone from anger to shock to disbelief to what do we do, and we've all gone through the roller coaster of emotions that these incidences have taken us through as people of color. When I think about what has happened to these young men, it could be my brother, it could be one of the young people in my church. And I think I sat down and I thought about, okay, what do I do? I can't just, I didn't want to speak out of turn. I didn't want to speak because everybody else was speaking. I didn't want to do something just because it's the in thing to do. I really wanted to be engaged in a way that that I felt convicted to be engaged. And so I started writing some stuff down, and I haven't finished writing yet, but the Lord just impressed me to get involved. Anger, frustration, hopelessness. Where is the church? What are we supposed to do as Seventh-day Adventists? Members, pastors, leaders, what do we do? How do we become engaged? How do we get our voices heard? All of that stuff was just going through my mind. And the one thing that I knew I could not do, I could not sit on the sideline. Could not sit on the sideline and watch so many other people from so many other walks of life engaged out front, protesting what happened to George Floyd, who, by the way, was a Christian young man. Came up from Houston, Texas, was very involved in his town there in Houston, in his community. Pastors have written about how he would help them to gather the young people in his community, to influence the young people in his community. And so to leave Houston, Texas, go to Minneapolis, and for this to be his end, to be murdered in such a cold-blooded way in the streets, really pulled on my heartstring. And I was in the shower, and I was literally just trying to fight back the tears. This has been a rough time altogether, because you got the COVID-19. I'm losing members, I got a baby that passed in my church. Just so many things. There's just this flood of emotions, and then to watch this thing happen. And the other thing I said to myself, Tosh, was I said, because I saw the video and I saw it from so many angles and I saw it so many times, I decided I couldn't go to sleep with that being the last thing on my mind. So I had to find a way also to break from it going to bed, because you don't want that to be the last thought going to bed.
Not at all.
But when I got up in the morning, I was like, okay, God, we got to do something. Got to do something. And so one of my young people told me about the protests down in Newark. And I knew the organizer, Larry Ham, had been to my church at least twice. And Larry knows me. I know him. He's one of the leading activists in the city. He was he was the youngest person ever elected to school board in Newark. He got elected when he was 16 years old to Newark.
Wow, that's impressive.
Board. So he's been, and he's an older gentleman now. Larry's got to be close to 70. So he's been on the front line of this thing for many years. He leads an organization called POP, People's Organization for Progress, I believe is the name of the organization. And so I called Larry because, we had talked several times, and I said, Larry, what's happening? And he said, listen, come down, Rev. He calls me Rev. He ain't at
yeah. Everybody's Rev. Yeah, keep that.
He said, come on down, Rev. We're going to meet at the Martin Luther King statue down on Market Street in Newark. And so when I got down there, people were everywhere. People were coming out of the woodwork. And I walked to the stage and I said, hey, Larry. And he said, hey, Rev. He said, listen, I want you to talk. I want you to say something.
Okay. I was wondering how that came about, that you ended up at the mic.
Yeah.
So what did you say? What was your message? Did you have something in mind, or were you just speaking straight from the heart?
I was speaking from the heart. But the thing, Tasha, that was moving and that was powerful. Larry introduced me as the pastor of the Church of the Oranges. And it was, I thought to myself, how many other Adventist pastors have missed an opportunity to connect with a community person like this? How many times have I missed the opportunity? And I'll speak for myself. Not even up. How many times have I missed the opportunity to connect with somebody who has street cred, as they say, who has credibility in the hood?
Wow.
How many times have we missed opportunities to invite them to our churches, to have them talk to our churches? And Larry's a brilliant man. He's a Princeton graduate.
Wow.
And he's running for senator of the state of New Jersey. So he's a brilliant guy. articulate. He doesn't, when he gets up to speak, he uses no notes. He's like a walking encyclopedia. Brilliant man. But he has such grassroots connection. He has credibility with people in the street because he's been fighting for the cause, for freedom, for justice, fighting for poor people. And, you know, he's been on the front line of this thing for many, many years.
Wow.
And so last year we had a Juneteenth celebration, and he came and spoke for Juneteenth celebration at our church.
Oh, nice.
Governor Murphy was there. Several other people were there for that Juneteenth celebration. So Larry was like the last speaker. And so, and then he spoke for Black History Month this past February for me. And so it was an easy connection. And so when he asked me to speak, I was going through my head, what am I going to say? And so I just said, you know what, I'm just going to speak from my heart. Because, you know, I didn't have time to write it, because I didn't think I was going to speak when I went down.
Right.
I was just going down to support, to you know, to be there, to be a part of the process, to let my voice be heard, you know. And somebody said, you know, Pastor, be careful because, you know, there are people might rob and steal.
Right. I was gonna ask.
And Larry set the stage immediately. He said, this is not about rioting. This is about a peaceful protest. So if you have any ulterior motives, go home right now.
Okay, that's important to note from the beginning. But what did it feel like before you got up to speak and address the people? What did it feel like being surrounded by so many people? I mean, we saw some of your live, you know, you went on Facebook Live, some of the video. It just seemed like a sea of people around you on every side. What did it feel like? What was the energy like out there?
Yeah, there was some apprehension because, you know, you're trying to social distance the best way you can on the one hand. So you're trying to figure out, how do I social distance? How do I practice social distance?
No, that's a real fear. I mean, this is happening during the middle of a pandemic. So
my goodness,
crowd, kind of don't.
So I'm trying to figure it out, Tasha. I'm trying to balance it. Okay, how do you social distance? And at the same time, you're in this thing. And at some point, you know, I said, okay, God, I'm going to do the best I can, and then I'm going to trust you with the rest of it. But it was an amazing feeling, Tasha, of engagement. It was an amazing feeling that I'm not just cloistered in the church, you know, safe in my home. Yes, there's a reasonable risk here in the streets, marching with people. But the conviction I had in my heart, Tasha, was that this is where Jesus would be. This is where Jesus would be. Over and over again, Ellen White, you know, we quote Ellen White, you know, Ellen White talks about Jesus mingling with people. And one of the things that bother me as Adventists is that we are afraid to mingle with people.
Yeah.
We're afraid to mingle with people who are unlike us. And when you talk about that crowd, the 99.99% are people who are unlike us. And so you just got to be prepared. You got to be open, and you got to understand you're there as a representative of Christ. You're there as a representative of the church. You're there as a representative who's calling for justice, who is saying, we want justice. We want justice for George. It's the right thing to do. And, you know, the vast majority of people who have given feedback, they've given positive feedback. But I've had some people who said, you know, it's the Sabbath day and you shouldn't be doing this. And I thought to myself,
no.
What do you think Jesus would be doing? Do you think Jesus, watching and looking at the life of Jesus, do you believe Jesus on the Sabbath day, if this was going on and Jesus was here right now, if Jesus were here right now, would Jesus be home in church or would he be with the people?
Right.
And Tasha, there's no question in my mind that this is exactly where Jesus would be doing exactly what I was doing.
I agree. And I know that you pointed that out in your speech.
The other thing too, Joshua, was that, again, there's the apprehension because should I go? Shouldn't I go? What if something goes wrong? What if people start rioting? You know, what if they start breaking windows and police and tear gas and yada, yada, yada? I thought about all of that and I thought it through. And I said to myself, number one, I'm a big boy.
I love it.
Number two, I'm a child of the King. I walk with angels. The God of angel armies walks with me on my journey.
Amen.
And then number three, I thought about what our forefathers endured.
Wow.
I thought about Martin Luther King. I thought about, and even now, Tasha, it brings me to tears to think of, I think of Harriet Tubman. And I come back to this over and over again, of people who were fighting for freedom in the Underground Railroad. And I think about people who came from Virginia and who came from Southern Maryland. And they took the journey from Southern Maryland to New York, to Canada, to Syracuse, to Albany. They took that journey on foot, months in the cold. And you're talking about the potential. They did it at the risk of losing their lives.
Yeah. It was worth that much.
It struck me,
Yeah. That's powerful.
So I thank God for helping me to have a perspective to understand what the struggle has been like for so many people. And I cannot, and we as Adventists should not sit on the sideline while everybody else fights for freedom for the rest of us.
I agree. It's funny, not to interrupt you, but I was just talking to Dr. Anthony Medley, who preached a sermon pretty much saying that this past Sabbath, about Adventists sitting on the sidelines. It's time for us to get up. How do you think we should be engaged right now? There's so many who want to be, but they're not quite sure how to do it. What are some of your recommendations?
Well, number one, I believe that if I had not been engaged before this moment, it probably would be more challenging for me to be engaged, because building those relationships over years takes time. Clearly, right? You can't come to, you have to have an opportunity, and when the opportunity presents itself, to connect with a guy like Larry Hama, to connect with Governor Murphy before he was running for governor. When he was thinking about running for governor, and he came and sat down and came to the church, and we prayed for him and so on and so forth. So the idea is, be engaged before the emergency. Connect with people. We have to connect with people before the crisis comes.
So true.
And then when the crisis comes and you reach out, then people are not asking, well, who are you?
Right. Right. You don't have to ask to speak. They know you and call you up to say something.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I didn't have to go to him and say, listen, I want to say something.
Right.
He said, Rev, I want you to speak. So, and that makes a lot of difference, because it's saying that you have built a relationship and you've developed some level of credibility with people who are on the front line. And I think all of us need to be more engaged. The Adventist Church, Tasha, has for years been on the sideline. We are Johnny come latelys, Johnny not coming. Watching, in the comfort of home, watching it all transpire before us, in our safety zone. And I really believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ and the example set by Ellen White and Edson White and those who've gone before us of sacrificing and of taking reasonable risk, and the Morning Star was not a reasonable risk, really. It was a life or death endeavor. But they fought for the freedom and for the equality and for the opportunities that many of us benefit from today, and we have to fight for the right and the justice and the equity and the equality that our children and grandchildren will benefit from in future generations if the Lord delays his coming. So that's how we have to think of it. That's how we have to think of it. I want to say one more thing, Tasha, and then I'm going to go. And the last thing I really want to say is this, and I hope people get this for how important I believe it is. Every single struggle in the history of the march for freedom of slaves, the enslaved people, African Americans, every single successful march for justice included white Christians.
Yes.
I want us to think about that. The
Mm-hmm.
Underground Railroad would never have been successful
That's
without
right.
white Christians.
Mm-hmm.
The Civil War, which eventually brought about the Emancipation Proclamation, would have never happened without white Christians fighting for the freedom of slaves.
Yeah.
The Civil Rights Movement was successful because whites joined and marched with blacks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying all that to say, until white people who call themselves Christians see this just cause for what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and stand shoulder to shoulder with us and say, we as white Christians will not stand for it. We stand with our brothers and sisters. We stand with people of color who've been disenfranchised, marginalized, treated unfairly, brutalized, murdered on the street. We refuse to stand by and watch this until white Christians en masse stand together for this cause. I do not believe that it will end.
Wow. That's
White
powerful.
Christians have to stand up. Evangelical Christians have to stand up and say, we are standing with you. And corporately, we get it, that when justice is compromised for one person or for one group of people, then justice is going to be off kilter. Justice, the justice will not be fair to any of us. Justice will be compromised for all of us. If it's compromised for one, it will be compromised for all.
Absolutely. I have to say that I do think this wave of outrage from the Black community has also brought out something, particularly in the Caucasian community, where they're now very curious about how we're feeling, and they actually are showing more of a desire to understand. I don't know if it's just my observation, but from what I'm seeing on social media, I'm seeing more of our white brothers and sisters coming out of their closets a little bit and saying, okay, yeah, I think we're starting to see what's happening here. And I think the more we educate and the more we come together, as you said, the more impactful and the further the movement will go. So that's very important that you mentioned that. And also I like that you mentioned the partnering with your community before something happens. People don't want people who just show up for photo ops and then they're back into their little cubby holes. They want people who are involved in the community and the service year round. And I know that that's something that Church of the Oranges is doing. And we definitely applaud you guys for that, being involved in your community. Any final words? What do we want to leave the people with this evening?
Well, I think what you just said is important. I saw a white person holding up a sign on Sabbath that said, white silence equals guilt. And the message,
that's powerful.
It struck me. It struck me in response to what you just said, that some people, some of our white brothers and sisters are getting it. It also gave me hope when I saw police officers marching in some of the demonstrations. It said that there are some cops who also get it. And you never want to think in terms of hopelessness. The beauty about America is that America has always been this place with bright hope, no matter how dark the night. There's always been a messenger of hope. So what made Barack Obama so inspirational is that he was a messenger of hope. And we hope for this great this democratic experiment, this republic, to live up to its true creed. The constitutional guarantees that it gave all of us. We hope and pray. That's what we're hoping for, that all men are created equal. And we are guaranteed with those inalienable rights, liberty, freedom, the pursuit of happiness. That my prayer is that all of America will demand that. And when we see, on the one hand, demonstrators with machine guns holding a state capitol hostage, when we see white militia holding the state capitol hostage with machine weapons, with with bazookas, and we are silent there, but we want to talk about blacks who are outraged and tired of oppression, and we call them hoodlums. But the people with the bazookas and the machine.
We lost you for a second there. There you go.
Terrorists, all kind of latitude. But we're calling out the National Guard for people in the street. We never called out the National Guard and everybody else for the terrorists who are holding the state capitol hostage. Those are freedom fighting and freedom loving Americans, really? But the people who are demonstrating in the street because somebody has been murdered, they are what? What do we call them? And my prayer is that all of us will see truth for what it is, and we'll demand justice for one and all. I believe and claim that in this world. I don't know how long it'll last for. And I'm my prayer, my we as Adventists, we look through the prophetic eye, Yeah. Ultimately, my prayer is that if it doesn't happen here for a long time, that the Lord will just put an end to it, and He'll come and set up His kingdom where justice and righteousness will reign forever. In the meantime, we'll keep pressing on.
That's right.
We got to keep pressing on. Got to keep fighting.
Thank you for modeling that it's okay for us as Adventist Christians to fight the good fight, to be present when these things are going on, to speak out on these issues. And, as you said, it's what Jesus would do. And if we call ourselves Christian, we should be doing what He would do. So thank you for being out there and representing and encouraging others to do the same. We appreciate your ministry and your commitment to justice. We thank you for that.
Thank you, sis. God bless you.
God bless you too. And please stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. All right, well, that wraps up today's episode. We're so grateful to our guests for sharing with us. One of the things I love about this is we get to really see how Allegheny East is a conference that's about being in the community and reaching out to others and standing for causes that we believe in. If you're out there doing something to fight the good cause right now, please let me know. Email me at lhewitt@aecsda.com. We love to talk with you as well. And as always, please continue to watch us on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We love to see you here. And after all, the more you watch, the more you know. We'll see you next time.